Hi, my name is Victoria Harris and I'm the COO at WomHub. With me, we are going to chat about and learn about business models, how they translate into business stages, and how you can utilize that to validate each stage and ultimately unlock funding opportunities.
What do we mean by the term business model?
It's hard to explain when it's just that term on its own. We've got to, when we analyze businesses, when we do a due diligence, when we look into that, we look at the traditional 5 pillars, which are product, understanding your product more, your deep dive of your product, your value proposition, your add values, your core competencies in product. It is market, understanding your customers, who your customers are, how do you source them, what are your channels to market. It's about understanding your operations, how do you operationalize that, and service your sell. It is the commercial model, how do you make money in that? And your external factors. So when we say business model, there isn't one answer because business model ties into each one of those 5 pillars. When you look at your business model of customer, if it's a B2B business model, you're sourcing businesses. That's your customer and that donates your market size. It donates how you, designates how you service them in operations, and the revenue model behind that. So really, business model is an interesting piece that ties across the entire business as the foundation, and then you build upon your pillars of product, market, operations, commercial, and external factors.
What is the importance of demonstrating our business model to investors?
So demonstrating a business model to an investor, I think it's the stage. That really, to me, comes down to what stage are you? Investors look different at different stages. They go everywhere from bootstrapping, so validating it to yourself, through to institutional investors when you IPO one day. So really, I think, I'm not answering any of this with a straight answer. It's like answering it with more complexity and layers. But validating a business model, you do start with what, or the advice is to start with what stage are you? If you are in ideation, how do you validate that? How do you have research? How do you speak to your potential customers? How do you work on early stage tests and experiments to validate that there is a business model here? When you go through your early stages, you've got ideation, proof of concept, pilot, MVP, and growth stage. Validating a business model at growth stage looks very different to at MVP to at pilot, for example. So focusing on what am I validating for my stage, then you again bring in those pillars. What are the 5 pillars that I'm looking for? How am I an MVP validating my operational model or my commercial model? And looking at that business model aspect in each one of those pillars, stage aligned.
What is the difference between a business plan and a business model?
When we look at the difference between a business plan and a business model, they are actually drastically different, the truth is. A business plan is your on-paper assumptions, plan, and drive for the business. I don't think a business plan is something that an early stage startup, and I know not everyone assimilates or calls himself a startup, but early stage, a startup is a business in transition. It hasn't yet found its feet. So even if you are an SMME one day and you land up, that is your ultimate destination, which I love, a lifestyle business. So certainly, if you are on the road to becoming an SMME and not a scalable venture, you still start at the startup stage, which is a transition. You're finding your space, you're finding your model, you're finding your operations, your commercials, all of that. So when you look at a business plan for early stage, I think where you are today and where you are in 6 months' time is completely different. So until you find your temporary structure of operation and service, actually a business plan is not suited for you.
What are the parts of my business model that are important for an investor to understand?
So when looking at what parts of your business model are important, again, I'm going to take it back to your stage. At the earliest stage, at ideation, there, investment looks at bootstrapping, angel. There's a concept of founder market fit, where there is a specialist in a field, and albeit that you're at early stage, because of your own personal IP, there is ability to raise funding. So when you're looking at earlier stages, the business model kind of validation there is about proving that there is a business case. Proving that there is a pain point at market, and that market, the business case, wants you to solve this, or will allow to solve it. So that's looking at proving out or validating business model at early stage. The later stage you go, your funding vehicles will change. You move from bootstrapping, grant, angel into pre-seed, seed, series, and then your vehicles change in terms of equity, debt. There's various vehicles looking for different solutions and different founders and what your outcomes are. But each stage is looking at validating different aspects of your model.
What is DD?
A DD is known as a due diligence. It is an assessment. So when you're looking at funding, your investors will run a due diligence. They will assess, it's in a sense a risk analysis. They will assess where your gaps are, where your risks are, where your potential is. So, a due diligence is used to do a deep dive into your business and unpack your business.
What is it about my business model that will make an investor confident about my journey to profitability?
So what an investor is looking for, I mean, I can't speak in terms of all investors, the blanket statement of investors, but what I look for when looking at a business model and then validating towards profitability is really again stage. If you are at MVP, the expectation is that you have validated your revenue model, your commercial model. Earlier stages, you are validating your business case. You're validating that there's a pain at market. You're validating that you can solve this pain at market with your solution. And then you get to MVP. And really for me, I look at MVP as pre-seed, growth as seed rounds. And validating in both MVP and growth are about, MVP is commercial. It's not just being post-revenue. So saying, well, I've got revenue, I therefore have validated. It's actually understanding a repeatable model. Understanding your units behind it, your unit economics. What is my customer life value? What is my cost of customer? And having that ability to understand the repeatability of your model, and then being able to say, okay, I validated this MVP. I think something important to also say around that is you will validate many MVPs. I haven't yet come across a business in my own portfolio, in other portfolios, that has just gone to market with the MVP, validated and said, right, we're ready for go stage, let's raise our next round and off you go. There are layers of that. You will have MVP 1, 2, 3, and the list continues. And I think that's important for founders to know, because we put this high emphasis that we need to validate our revenue model, validate our minimum viable product, and then go and raise. And in actual fact, it's layered and it takes time to get through that, to eventually then say, I'm now in growth stage, and what does that look like?
What metrics need to sit in my business model?
Okay, so looking at what do I validate to make sure my business model is true, what metrics are those? I'm going to take it back to stage. I sound like a bit of a stuck record here, but really, if we look at ideation, is about validating that there's demand at market, not just that you see the opportunity, but that there's demand. Customers will adopt it. You can solve for it. So really validating that demand. Proof of concept is about proving that you can validate that there is a business case in solving for this pain or this demand. Pilot is about validating that your customers, so you can build the solution, your customers will use this solution for the business case that solves for the pain. MVP is about proving that your customers will pay you for the solution that you've solved for.
What are unit economics?
Unit economics are form part of your commercial model. Commercial model is about I see in a sense money into two sides. There is the functional accounting.
I see money in two sides.
Okay, right. So I see the commercial model into two sides. There is the functional accounting part, your management accounts, and then there is the actual strategy behind your commercial model. Unit economics form the strategy or part of that strategy. They look at your unit. There's two forms of units, your unit as a customer or your unit as a sale. So your unit as a sale is a once-off. It's more of a transactional model. I know that this is a once-off sale. I might have a recurring customer, but I can't guarantee that recurring customer. Unit as a customer is about looking at your customer life value. How long does I have this customer for? How do I sell to this customer? What is that reoccurrence? And each one of them has a different model. So there's a different revenue model to that. If you're looking at unit of customer, you might be a SaaS model, so software as a service or solution as a service. If you are units as sale, it might be, like I said, transactional models. You could have, for example, unit as a customer as a loss leader model, right? I'm going to bring them in for this customer and I upsell them for other product ranges. And really it's looking at your unit economics is really to understand, am I unit as a customer? Am I unit as sale? And then actually taking that deeper lens and saying, what is my revenue model? Because revenue model and business model are two different concepts, right? They hold hands and they support each other.
Is there anything burning you think we should know about business models?
It isn't a science. Business model isn't a science. Being an entrepreneur is tough. There isn't, I talk about stages, that kind of gives this tail that you progress and you grow from one stage seamlessly to the other. You don't. You twist and turn and you get to MVP, you think you validated everything, suddenly you haven't, you go back to ideation, you get to growth stage, you develop more products, they go into ideation, you are constantly learning, you are constantly iterating. And then you've got to consider external factors and global changes, economic changes, and they have an impact on your business model. So as you think you've got it right, you suddenly have to pivot and change. So there isn't a science. There is patience, there's being kind to yourself, there is, I think, being aware and running constant assessments, risk assessments, DDs, being aware where your gaps are, and constantly striving to bridge those gaps, to have traction and forward movement. But there isn't a science. So for any entrepreneur, any founder out there, don't think that it's a tick box exercise and you seamlessly grow from one step to the next. I wish it was. The reality, it isn't. And you most probably will have multiple MVPs. You will have multiple products that may or may not get through the different stages. And that's part of the journey.